Dullah Omar. Okay, welcome everyone. Great to see so many of you attending. I want to say that we'll also put this training on our website so that if any of your colleagues have missed it, they can catch up later. Or if you want to double check anything, you can catch up later. So afterwards, we'll send the recording and we will send the resources. But the reason we are doing these webinars, we're doing 3 webinars. The reason we are doing these 3 webinars is because obviously not everyone can attend the Dullah Omar School. It's a much smaller school this year. It's only going to be 60 participants. So I hope you have made a good application, made a good it's also based on your motivation, so spend a good time thinking about your motivation. You have 350 words to explain why you should be admitted into the school. It doesn't matter if you've attended previous schools, because we want to make sure that people are committed to the topic. As you guys know, the topic is local government elections and the community advice office sector. This is a very important election year. Local government is essential for our basic services and dignity. And so, because only few people can attend, we wanted to make some of the sessions open so that that other people can, everyone can still get insight into these things. So we're going to have 3 of these sessions, and also just a reminder that applications close on the 8th, which I think is Monday. So get your applications in as soon as possible. No late applications will be accepted. And also, if you are applying for the stream 1, the mediation, you do not email Collyway. You fill out the entire online form, and then there's a link there. There's all the details you need there for that form on there. So the first is, there's going to be 3 trainings, and the first one is on understanding local government. This is just a snapshot. So at the school, we'll go deeper into understanding local government. Hello, Leroy. Nice to see you in the chat there. So the first is about understanding local government. The second one is going to be on an introduction to mediation. So because we know that sometimes these things can be incredibly difficult, people get sometimes there's violence in the road to elections. We want people to understand mediation practices and dialogue, right? So that's going to be the second, and then the third one is going to be on governance issues. So for every advice office, how to fundraise, how to have a board, what your board must do. So just general governance, so capacity building for all advice officers. And so today we're going to do the first one. So again, I just want to say, just for the recording, can you please keep yourself muted? And Koliwe will, hi Shlengiwe, how are you? So nice to see people I know in the chat. And so if you have any questions, we will have question time. But I just want to take us through some of the things. So I'm going to be doing the first section, which is just a snapshot of understanding local government. And then my comrade Awande, just want to put your camera on for 1 second and just wave to everyone. Say hi to everyone. Awande from People's Legal Center. Many of you know him. We'll do the second part of the training on understanding ward committees. You want to say hi one day?
Hi everyone. I'll be speaking later on.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, so this is, we're gonna start.
Amanda, you're muted.
You're muted, Amanda.
Sorry. Please get your applications in. We want to make sure that we get the best candidates for this school, which will be held in Joburg in August. Okay, so let me just talk to you about this. So I just want to say that even if you can't join the school, on Black Sash's website is the paralegal manual. So someone is messing with the someone is messing with the and I can actually you can see who it is, Koliwe, the whiteboard. If you can just stop whoever that is
I
from.
don't see it on my side.
Okay, well, they've just drawn a red line through it, but it's fine. It's okay. Okay, that's fine. So if you cannot come to the school and you still need resources, remember that every one of the advice officers was sent a copy of this paralegal manual, unless you didn't reply to us. That's on you guys. So the paralegal manual, but it's also available on the Black Sash's website. So if you need resources, there's 17 chapter manual that's available for you guys. It's also available on this there's a link to it on Legal Fundi and on ETU. It's done by these 4 organizations, and it's a tool for advice officers. So if you need that, you can also go and access those resources. And these are the different chapters. And today we're just going to be focusing on chapter 4, which is local government. Okay. So I'm just gonna, so on local government, right? So chapter 7 of the Constitution, that creates a framework for local government. So we all know the Constitution. Right? Okay. Here's my copy of the Constitution. It's get it around here. Give me 1 second. So the Constitution sets out all the laws for every government department or government sphere, or how the courts must operate. We know that, right? And chapter 7 gives a framework for local municipalities, right? They are separate and autonomous, so they have their own set of responsibilities and their plans and their works, different to different to provincial government, different to national government. Often national government, Michelle, the application forms are online. Sorry, but let me close the chat so that I can just quickly. So, often national government, like the National Department, the DBE, National Department of Education, will set up an education policy and plan, and the provincial governments will implement that in their provinces. But municipalities have separate functions, completely different to that, right? And a municipal council is the legislative authority of the municipality. So it's like the municipal council is like a mini parliament for the municipality, and it passes what's called bylaws. So I'm sure you guys know of a few bylaws, like again, I'm just going to ask everyone to mute. Like in the city of Cape Town, we have bylaws around when you can and can't sell alcohol. We have bylaws for how much your dog can bark. Bylaws for how high you can build a building, what areas can be used, and that is done by the municipal council. They also work out the budget and policies on how to manage local government affairs. But all of this is subject to legislation. They can't just make up things themselves, right? So they also have to act within the Constitution in Chapter 7 and act within whatever national laws exist. And so that council then elects what's called an executive, the mayoral executive or the mayoral committee. And it's so the mayor, if we want to continue with the mini parliament metaphor, that executive committee are like the ministers, and the mayor is like the president, but of the local municipality. We just want to keep that metaphor going. Okay. So one of the important things about local government, right, is that they act with there are what we need to understand is that there are 3 spheres of government, and there are 3 branches of government, and we often get those confused, right? So the 3 branches of government are completely separate entities, right? So if you imagine a tree, 1, 2, 3 branches, they don't touch each other. And those 3 branches are the executive, made up of the president and the ministers, and they implement the laws. Then the other branch is the legislature, which is made up of parliament and the National Council of Provinces. They make the laws. You see them on TV all the time. And then you have the judiciary, who oversees that the laws that are happening correctly, that holds them accountable. So those are the branches, and we must not confuse them with the 3 spheres. So the 3 spheres are, if we make a big circle, for example, we imagine the biggest sphere, the biggest circle is national government in charge of the most amount of things. And then the smallest sphere is provincial government. And then there is local government. Each of them, they have their level of responsibilities from biggest to smallest, but they are separate responsibilities. And the Constitution kind of helps them with that. But they must all work together. There's a policy of cooperative governance. So if you look at, we use the school example again. If you look at the DBE, who's the Minister of Education? Anyone? Her name is Siviwe. So she's the Minister of Education, right? She works in the national government. And she and the national department set education policy. And provincial governments must make sure that provincial education departments. So in the Western Cape, for example, there's a guy called David Manier. He's the MEC for education in the Western Cape. He has to make sure that other education-related there we go. Thanks, Leroy. Other education-related policies are implemented. For example, scholar transport. So the provincial governments in KZN have a scholar transport policy, which is different to the Western Cape scholar transport policy. But the provincial governments must ensure that those things are implemented. So then, but then they must all work together. That's cooperative governance means that the national and provincial must work together. So local government has no education policy mandate, right? They don't have an education policy. They don't have to make schools. They don't have to build schools. They don't have to hire teachers. But local governments are in charge of water. And you can't say a school is a school unless it has water and electricity. Learners can't learn without sanitation, without the lights being on at school. And that is where local government have a responsibility to implement water policies, water usage, land usage issues, make sure that the electricity is given. And so that's where those three governments must work together. So on every issue, everyone has some responsibility. And so in the example of that, the local government responsibility is just water in my example, but it still relates to a broader policy of education. And that's why cooperative governance is important. So section 154 of the Constitution requires that they work together to strengthen and that national and provincial governments must support local government because they're the smallest, they're the tiniest, they have the smallest budgets, they have the least amount of responsibility, but there's so many so many local governments. Provincial departments must work together to support them, to help monitor, etc. So we see that when there are things like flooding, for example, if there's flooding in the city of Cape Town, that doesn't mean that just the city of Cape Town has to deal with that. The provincial government can often help out with things, help with disaster management, help with funding, etc. But there are also limitations to what these provincial governments can do. You can't, like the mayor, the MEC can't interfere with some of the mayoral functions. Those are very important. And we see that play out a lot when we see something like Gauteng. When Gauteng, the premier is a ANC premier, and some of the local governments are perhaps DA or Action SA or wherever, we sometimes see that there's a battle for power over certain responsibilities. Dumisani, I am going to remove you. Please take away those lines that you've done, or you are going to get removed from this Zoom. So take them away, and if you can't do it one more time, you're going to get removed. Please, guys. And so so there's also a big boundary that the Constitution sets that local government you can't take mess with certain functions. Okay, key duties of the key responsibilities, developmental duties of the municipality are they have to administer the key duties is to manage, administer, budget, and plan to give priority to basic needs of the community. So that's the key thing is basic needs. And basic needs include water, sanitation, and refuge collection. Those, and then some land use issues also. So those are the important ones, right? They have to plan for that. Water and sanitation is the most fundamental thing for everyone. Then they need to promote social and economic development of the community. And that's often where land use comes in. Like they see a field and they can maybe give it to a group of women who want to start a food garden, or they allow certain people to open a shop, a kind of shop that may be for economic growth. And then they also need to participate in national and provincial developmental programs. So that's some of the key developmental goals. I'm sorry about these red lines that Dumisani has done. Maybe if I stop sharing and then reshare. Here we go. Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then that's more on the cooperative governance. Thanks, Ivashni. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Again, like I said, although they are all three spheres of government are autonomous, they must work together in decision making, budgets, etc. And then the way in which the way in which local government is represented is through SALGA, and there's SALGA offices in all 9 provinces. SALGA stands for South African Local Government Association, and that's how they are. That's the representation for them. Okay. Now we're going to get onto just a little bit more detail. So there are certain laws that, and again, remember, this is just a snapshot. Those of you who do the course will get a little bit more detail if you do join the Dullah Omar School. But there are laws that govern, just so that you know them. The Demarcation Act, which sets out the boundaries. I'll show you a photo later on of all the boundaries for the different local. There's 208 local municipalities. So those are where the boundaries are decided. And that's often a very contentious issue, especially if some people are on borderline municipalities like Western Cape, Eastern Cape, or Gauteng versus the Northwest Province, where people think that there's maybe some more resources. So that's the Demarcation Act. Then the Structures Act sets out the types of municipalities and provides for elections. And we'll get to the types of municipalities in the next slide now. Then the Municipal Systems Act, which sets out how the operations and procedures that they should follow. So how decisions are made, how money is fundraised for. The Municipal Property Rates Act regulates the power of municipalities to impose property. We know that that's different in every municipality. So even things like applying for your learner's license, right? So in the city of Cape Town, you want to learn to drive, you get a learner's license. It's like 120 Rand. When I was living in Mpumalanga, I went to Barberton and they wanted to charge me like 400 Rand. So municipalities fundraise through various ways, such as rates, and also things like permits. So like if you need a permit for a certain kind of animal or things, they can decide those rates. We also don't pay the same amount of electricity in every municipality because those things are reduced or rebated in certain municipalities. And then the Municipal Finance Act also ensures that municipalities get a fair part of the equitable share of government's big budget. Okay. Then the structures of the municipality. I think this is the most important because this is often where people get confused when it comes to elections. We'll get to that. So, the structure of the municipality is made up of these three core layers. You got the mayor and his executive or mayoral committee, right? The MCC. So many of you may have seen Action SA this last weekend launched their manifesto for local government, and in that manifesto launch, they already said who they want their different MCCs to be. But those MCCs are actually voted by the council. So when Herman Mashaba says he wants Tumi Sole to be an MMC for something, he can't actually say that he can put those names forward. But okay, so the mayoral and executive committee, they're responsible for policy making and monitoring outcomes. So when there's a policy to say, okay, we've just demarcated 20% of our land for food gardens, the mayoral committee for agriculture has got to make sure that those outputs are happening. They set out the vision, mission, and outcomes and outputs for the administration, and they check that the municipal manager is carrying out their duties under their employment contract. So these are elected officials. So we elect them in elections, and then the council votes them. The big municipal council votes them in. The municipal managers are not elected officials. They are employees. So that's sometimes tricky because, say, for example, so the municipal manager of Tshwane has been the municipal manager of Tshwane, whether it's been the DA that's been in charge or the ANC or Action SA. The municipal manager is an employee, can only be let go of through like employee like labor relations action. So they are responsible for managing the administration and to implement policy. So no matter so different political parties have different political agendas, but the municipal manager is an official. It's a functionary. And so they must carry out the instructions given by the executive on behalf of the council. They must give the executive regular reports on its activities. They must try not to unduly influence the council or provide it with misleading information. So if any of you have ever been in some sort of movement or body, you've got your elected officials, your chairperson, your secretary general, etc. But then you've got the functionaries that do the work of your trade union or your political party. And then you have the councillors, all your councillors who are voted in, they make up the council, and they must meet regularly. And they must approve policy or amend budgets. They must prioritize those issues that are proposed by the executive. They must pass bylaws and reflect their policies and objectives, monitor the performance of the mayor, and can give official direct. They cannot give official direct instruction to do something. They must vote. So also these are often represented by different political parties. So if you voted in you lived in East London and your council was 20% ANC, 40% EFF, they will be proportionately in your council. Okay. How decisions are made in council. So they follow a very similar pattern no matter what. The agendas are prepared before meetings. There are committee reports. So they break up into different committees. Like you've seen that in Parliament, like the Pala committee or the portfolio committee on education, the portfolio committee on transport. They have committees and they come with with proposals, or the public can petition the council to make a decision on something. Like you want a certain like liquor store to be closed, you can petition your council to do that because liquor licenses are within the purview of the council. Or someone can, yes, they get a 5-year contract. So if elections happen over that 5-year count, they have to stay. But they try to make them overlap. Motions to appear, so you can also ask to appear before your council to make a presentation or before one of the committees. So yeah, then different reports are tabled before council. And then when an issue comes up for discussion, they often refer to a committee. So not everything gets discussed in the big plenary group. There are these committees that deal with different issues. And if a matter is referred to the committee must produce a report for the executive committee or the mayor, and they must consider that issue and put recommendations forward. And then they vote on the matter. So that's why we have a council. So in essence, this is why local government is so important, and that's what we want to understand. Come from DOS, this year's DOS is that the local government is like a mini parliamentary structure, right? But for core, basic life or death issues like water and sanitation and electricity, and that is why this year's local government elections are so important, because these are issues on the ground, right? Then this is very important for people to understand, and I'm almost done, don't worry. I'll hand over to Awande. But there are different categories of local government, right? So the structure of local government is in the Local Municipal Structures Act, and there are different types, and they vote differently depending on what kind of structure. So if I live in a metro, for example, so I'll get 3 ballots. Some people who live in a smaller municipality, like I'm thinking of a smaller municipality that's not like in Ladysmith, for example, that isn't the metro. They might only have 2 ballot papers, but you'll see that will get to differently. But there are different kinds. But there are 257 different types of There are 257 municipalities in South Africa. 8 metros. I'll give a prize to whoever can name. No, I won't give a prize, but there are 8 metros. I'll name them. So there's the city of Cape Town, there's Tshwane, there's Mangaung in the Free State, there's Mbombela in Mpumalanga, there's the city of Johannesburg, there is eThekwini municipality, and that's I've got 6. Who can name the other 2? Right. So City of Cape Town, Tshwane Municipality, City of Johannesburg. I think Ekurhuleni is a I could be wrong. Mbombela, Mangaung, sorry, Nelson Mandela Bay and Buffalo City Municipality. How could I forget the Eastern Cape? Makanda is not a metro. So the metros are the big ones. They will have more than a metro is a large city with more than 500,000 voters, right? So that's the big ones. So 2 in the Eastern Cape, 1 in So like the Northwest Province and the Northern Cape don't have any metros. They don't have more than 5,000 voters in any of those. So those are the big ones. Then we have 44 district municipalities. Now, district municipalities, before I explain district municipalities, let me explain local municipalities. There are 205 local municipalities in the country. These are small municipalities, and because they are so small, they don't always have enough resources to provide for everything. So 4 to 6 local municipalities make up a district municipality. And so they share responsibilities. So they'll perhaps have one finance manager that helps do the budget for all 4 to 6 local municipalities. They all work together so that they're able to give proper access to resources, water, make sure that people have whatever they need. But in South Africa, we have 257 municipalities, 8 metros, 44 district municipalities, and 205 local municipalities. And I'm going to show you them on the map now. So here you go on the, wait, let me actually show you this map. Okay. So here you have it's actually 48. 48, you have your local, no, it's 44 local municipality, your district municipality. So you're like the Eden district in the Western Cape, or the Bateau the district. But then you've got these ones that are named here. So the city of Cape Town, that's a metro, that's a metro, that's a metro, that's Nelson Mandela Bay, that's Buffalo City Municipality, that's Mangaung, for example, that's Tshwane, that's Johannesburg. So, and that's eThekwini. So it's all these ones with lots of votes, and then you've got these district municipalities. And then if you look at this image, the district municipalities are made up of these 205 much smaller local municipalities. And so, yeah, tell us if you know what you put in the chat, if you know what your local if you don't live in a metro like I do, if you live in a non-metro, tell us in the chat if you know what your local municipality is and what your district municipality is. Please put that in the chat. Okay, and so that's just a little snapshot of understanding the structure of your council, how decisions are made, and the different structures of the municipalities. And we will get into that in much deeper if you join the school, but they also, all of that information is in this paralegal manual that you can access. What we want to discuss today is what your role is in the municipal structure, which is that you can get involved through your ward committees. And one day I'm going to hand over to Awande now, because he's going to explain how ward committees work and what their important role and function is and how you can get involved. So I just want to double check quickly in the chat before while Awande, I'm going to stop sharing so that you can share. You need to. Right. Okay. So there we go. So Lerato says she's from Ntekole. Oh, sorry. Let me just while Awande gets there. So okay, Zuko is in the Eastern Cape in the OR district municipality, but her local municipality is in Nguzu local hills. Lindo Kushle is from Chief Albert Lutuli local municipality, and it's in the Gertsibande district. There we go. So Sindiswa is in the Kuchu local municipality. Great. So what's your district municipality, Sindisa? Tabile is from Itekele district, and Alfred Duma is their local. Steve Tswete municipality. So that's great. So you guys do know that how your local municipality and your district municipality works. So that's great. And you know the difference and what each is. So the district municipality is responsible for a lot more because they have a lot more not more functions. So I'm going to hand it over to Awande now. Awande, go for it. Thank you. Introduce yourself, please.
Good. Is it still morning? Good morning, South Africa. So I'm so honored to be presenting today on behalf of People's Legal Center. My name is Awande. I'm currently based in Cape Town with Amanda. I am based at a metro municipality, which means we have more than 500,000 voters here in Cape Town. And I think so with this presentation today, it's such an important presentation in the context of what is upcoming now in November, as some of us will be casting our votes for our ward councillors and how that system plays out. And I think Amanda did explain it quite well in terms of who is actually in council and what is council and how it functions going forward. So thank you so much once again. Just a brief intro into People's Legal Center as an organization. We are a non-profit organization based in Cape Town, very young than most advice offices and other organizations. Black Sash is 76 years old this year, and we are only just 4 years old. But we have been part of this social justice, legal empowerment, and increasing access to justice work, primarily in Cape Town. So what we do is we empower community leaders and activists with what most of you are already doing, who are based in advice offices, to become community-based paralegals. So we actually envision what you guys are doing all over South Africa, at least to be more advice officers in Cape Town, and we hope to expand our educational footprint around the country very soon. So we run a 5-month community paralegal course. We cover a whole range of legal topics such as labor law, family law, wills and estates, refugee rights, queer rights, and most importantly, within this month, actually, Amanda, we're doing community and constitution. And in our Wednesday session, we covered just this topic that we're talking about today. We talked about council, voting, ward committees with our 35 participants in our community paralegal course. So on today's topic, I will be taking a deep dive into what is called ward committees. Now, these ward committees, they function differently based on your type of municipality that you come from, and also the different types of participation that ward committees play. I will go into what are ward committees later on, but the core theme of my session now is on participatory democracy. How can we, as voters, as communities, participate in local government through this vehicle called ward committees? And we'll be explaining that throughout this presentation. And so for us in this particular session, pardon, so I'll just do an introduction to ward committees, just the legal foundation of it, and then move on to the roles and responsibilities of ward committees. And another important element that we'll cover is what is called ward budgets. But ward budgets are very much limited to metro municipalities, but we'll give an explanation moving forward. But we'll be explaining this context of what budget within the context of the city of Cape Town and also local governors in terms of how municipalities run these governments. And it's a very much important participatory element that communities should play a part in. Um, and then the introduction to ward committees. Now, before I just go into the legal essence of ward committees, I think it's important to also touch base on the political side of ward committees. So on the 4th of November, 2026, we will be casting our votes either in your metro or in your local municipality. And then councillors will be elected, as Amanda alluded to. And then once council has started and the mayor has been elected inside of council, and then when the councillors go back to their community, they have a mandate to establish ward committees. Now, these ward committees are people that the ward councillor is meant to work with to assist in terms of public participation, in budgeting, to assist in also just like developing and understanding the social and economic issues of the particular councillor's ward. So we could view them in essence, a ward committee, as an assistance and advisory body of a ward councillor once the ward councillor is elected. But we'll go through some of the challenges that we've picked up in relation to ward committees in South Africa, and most people why there's a lack of understanding of this particular structure. So as Amanda did start with the Constitution, we always also want to start there in terms of the legal foundation. And part of that legal foundation is actually in Chapter 7 of the Constitution, specifically Section 152, where the Constitution provides that the objects of local government are, and I'm just going to go through Section 152(1)(e), is to encourage involvement of communities and community organizations in matters of local government. So our Constitution says that local government has to do this function of encouraging us as community members to be involved in the matters of local government and not to be on the sidelines, but to also be involved after elections. Now, to give effect into this, as Amanda also talked about the various legislations that govern around local government, but we will mostly be focusing on the Structures Act, and touch a little bit on the Systems Act when it comes to participatory budgeting and governance. So in terms of the Structures Act, some of these legislations are quite long and would need someone to really take the time to go through them and to be able to understand them. But in terms of Section 72, it states that the object of a ward committee, which from Section 72 onwards legislatively creates this body called ward committees. The object of a ward committee is to enhance participatory democracy in local government, as of what I've alluded to. Now, there was a very important case in the early 2000s in South Africa, a landmark decision in the Constitutional Court called the Doctors for Life judgment. Now, in the Doctors for Life judgment, it set a precedence on participatory decision-making or participatory democracy, where in that particular case, it was stated that South Africa is a participatory democracy in the sense that public involvement may be seen as a continuum that ranges from providing information, building awareness, to partnering in decision-making. Now, in our country, participatory democracy and participatory governance based on the Constitution is one of the key elements that municipalities should function under. But as we know, in reality, in most of our municipalities, it's not the case. And I think it's important for us to emphasize that it should be the case. And it's something that we as community paralegals, community members, community activists and leaders, it's something that we should also be demanding actually, because it's a right that we have, but it's a right that most of us don't understand, and it's a right that is not exercised by those that we put in power. Now, ward committees. meant to encourage participation by the community. And their job is to make municipal council aware of the needs and concerns of residents, keeping people informed of the activities of municipal council. Now, the role of a ward committee, right? They work with the ward councillor. As they work with the ward councillor will be in council. So you vote for him to go to council. As Amanda was saying, it's like sort of like a parliament of your municipality. Now, in that parliament of your municipality, the access that your ward has to that parliament is a ward councillor that was elected. When the ward councillor comes back, they will have these amount of people, depending on the particular municipality. In Cape Town, the limited amount is 10 people. So they will have these 10 people who are based in the community where they're supposed to filter down information and communication from council and give it to these 10 members. These 10 members go back to their community structures, come back with feedback, tell the ward councillor can take it back to council. So it's to also assist in terms of how our actual local municipalities and metro municipalities govern with the understanding of what are the current needs of the community and also what council can do through reporting to the ward councillor. Now, in terms of Section 73, it then gives authority to establish ward committees. Now, when we're talking about this particular act, the Structures Act, it applies to all municipalities in the country. So each and every municipality under this particular legislation is mandated to establish ward committees. Now we'll see what the Act says in terms of establishing these ward committees, which in terms of 73, subsection 2, ward committees are made up of a ward councillor and no more than 10 people who are elected from the ward and who serve voluntarily for a 5-year term. So ward committees will serve a 5-year term, which also translates to the 5-year term of the particular ward councillor. And in terms of Section 73.3, your municipal council must make rules regarding the election of ward committee members, including how often meetings take place and the dissolution of ward committees. Now, the first part mandates all municipalities to have ward committees, and the councillor has to be part of that ward committee. And also there's a 5-year term that has been given to these 10 members, right? And then the second part of Section 73 then gives a flexibility towards the particular municipality to make its own rules, right? To make its own rules regarding the election of ward committee members, and including in terms of now how these ward committees will operate, right? In the local municipality, in terms of the amount of meetings that they can have, and also how can the ward committee be dissolved. So the flexibility around this, or rather non-uniform approach to this, is depending on your local municipality. And I saw everyone here is all over South Africa. So it's very important now when you go back from this presentation, try and find out what are the rules of your municipal council that it has adopted with regard to the election of ward committees and also the operation of ward committees, because each and every local municipality will have their own, and Cape Town also has its own. I am going to try and touch a little bit on how Cape Town's ones function. And then Section 74 from national legislation then provides for the function and powers of ward committees. What can this structure that we have called a ward committee, what can they do, right? And what powers have they been given by legislation? Not by the councillor, by legislation, by law. What has the law giving them the power to say, okay, a ward committee. Now, a ward committee may make recommendations on any matter affecting its ward, right? And then any matter affecting the ward. So these recommendations can be ranging from service delivery, electricity, water, sanitation, issues around safety, crime in the communities, issues around whatever is affecting mostly the community at the time. And we know there's so many other issues around like children, basic healthcare, all of these things that are affecting it says any matter affecting its ward, right? They can make recommendations on it. Now, these recommendations can be submitted to who? To the ward council, right? And then, or through the ward councillor to the metro or local council. So now a ward committee has been given the power to make a recommendation directly to its ward councillor. And then it says, or it can actually go to the metro council or to the local council. So a ward committee can also participate in council itself, and not only through the ward and the ward councillor, but can actually go up a notch and take it to council. And then the executive committee, the executive mayor, or the relevant metropolitan council. So now this differentiation then comes in. The ward committee can make these recommendations, other structures in local government. Now, these other structures, when we're speaking about sub-councils and executive committees, so the executive committee is the mayoral executive committee, as Amanda spoke to. They are like the ministers of the mayor. So you can make recommendations there. And also you can make recommendations to a sub-council, metropolitan sub-council. Now, sub-councils, they are only functioning in metropolitan municipalities, which are the seven that the 8 metros that we talked about, from Cape Town, Nelson Mandela Bay, and the rest. Yeah. And the ward committee has such duties and powers as the metro and local council may delegate to it in terms of Section 59 of the Systems Act. Now, when it comes to legislation, so different parts of legislation can speak together. Now, we've got the Structures Act, which establishes ward committees. And then we've got the Systems Act, which speaks on the operations of municipalities. Now they say here, actually, the council has the discretion to give powers and duties, right, above just making recommendations, and can delegate to ward committee structures. So ward committees could have so much power within the ward and within also the municipality itself if council decides to delegate those powers in terms of Section 59 of the Systems Act. So there could be so much more that could be done with ward committees. But the unfortunate truth is, based on our research, is that ward committees are not the best functioning participatory democracy vehicle in South Africa right now. And a big highlight that I would like to make is that just after our elections, ward committees need to be established and the rules need to be adopted. And we need to monitor as communities, once we've casted our ballot, who will be part of the ward committee in my ward and what will they be representing and what recommendations are we expecting them to make through the ward councillor or actually through council, and what powers have they been given in my local municipality. So I think it would be important just after this presentation to look at who are your ward committee members in your specific ward, right? And what are the rules your local municipality or metro municipality has in place, and what powers have they been delegated, right? Now we're going to go. Now we've talked about the structure and the makeup of ward committees. When can they be there? What can they do? How many people can be part of the ward committee structure? And what powers can they have, depending on what the particular municipal council has given to your local ward committee. Now we're going to go through the roles and responsibilities. Oh, firstly, can I get thumbs ups if people were following in my particular presentation. Just if I could see a few thumbs ups, going once, going twice. Okay, so now we're going to continue to the roles and responsibilities of ward committees. Yeah. So as I've said, the ward committee function as an advisory body which can advise and make recommendations on any matter affecting its ward and ward councillor, including policy. Yeah. So I think if we can imagine this concept of a ward committee in relation to if some of us who are coming from rural communities to what is we will call in the Eastern Cape Bunga, or in other areas they will call it Lechota, right? Where there is traditional leadership, but the traditional leader, the chief or the king, always has a body of advisors around him that will make certain decisions. So even though the chief has the highest position, they don't make all of the decisions on their own. They have to consider their own advisory body. So the imagination of our legislators or the people that created the Structures Act and the idea around ward committees was to support the particular ward councillor, right? The ward committee is seen as support of the ward councillor because one person in a particular ward cannot solve, let's say, for example, in this ward, we have 20,000 people. Out of the 20,000 people, there's 10,000 registered voters. One person cannot deal with 20,000 individual complaints all the time, right? It's highly impossible to do that. And especially if you're going to be in your community and you're engaging with your community, it's always best to have this advisory body of a committee and community organizations that a ward council is supposed to be working with to assist in terms of like affecting decisions, development, economic related decisions about the particular ward and service delivery on the ward. So the ward committee functions as that advisory body to assist the ward councillor in continuing his or her good work. Now, the ward committee functions as a representative structure, right? Now, when very important, it says as a representative structure. So it means here is that based on the rules that a particular council will have to adopt, right, to ensure how ward committees are elected and how they operate. Those two rules, election rules and operational rules. Now, by the mere fact that there has to be election rules based on the Structures Act, it means that the ward committee's members, they are representing particular parts of the community. They need to represent particular interests in that community, and they are not there for their own personal gain. They are not there for their own political interests. They are not there for their own professional and personal development. They are meant there to be there to represent the community at large, or to rather represent the ward at large. So I'm sorry, I'm just becoming too legal here. Every word is very important for me and its definition and its meaning. So whenever we say representative structure, it means these are people that need to represent us as a ward, that need to represent us as a community, or that need to represent us as people of a particular interest group. So it's a representative structure which assists the ward councillor in identifying challenges and needs of residents, share information in the ward concerning municipal affairs, such as, and we've put it on bold, budget and the integrated development plan, right? There's the budget and what we call the IDP. We'll talk about these two later on. Performance management systems, service delivery options, municipal properties, and ensure active participation of the community in these processes. Now, this actually now widens the net of ward committees. So they are not only there to take, let's say, to address complaints and issues, they are also there plan or to be part of the planning or to be part of the vision of the ward, to be part of how to develop us as a particular ward. So there's much more deeper essence into this representative structure called ward committees, where we as community members should actually be engaging in if we actually knew all of these very much complex systems, right? So the ward committee scope goes far and beyond of just like disseminating information, taking complaints. It also evolves around planning, right? And then the ward committee also serves as a mobilizing agent for community action of the ward, right? So say community action. Sorry, this is the activist part of me. Community action. If the ward committee is very functioning and the ward councillor and council is disregarding the views of the ward committee can actually have a community action, submit a notice, a gatherings notice, and then actually participate in a protest to say, we as the ward committee have spoken to our councillor. Here are the emails. Here are the meeting minutes. We've submitted to council. Here are the demands. Here are the emails. Here's the evidence of it. And we've been ignored to address these particular community issues. So they could actually also mobilize communities if, should they be functioning very well. And also further on, what committees function as an independent and impartial structure and perform its functions without fear, favor, or prejudice. Now, this is a very tricky part of the ward committee. So what we've seen, I'll just make an example of Cape Town. So what we've seen with the ward committees around Cape Town is that the councillor, because they come from a particular political party, whether it's the blue party, the yellow party, or the red party, once they become a councillor, they will rather opt to have ward committee members who are from the same political party, which then takes away this function of independent and impartial structure, because there are no other views except for the particular political entity through its representative, who will be the ward councillor. Then the ward councillor will also take people from the same political entity, which is then, I think, in most communities, has taken away this impartialness and this independentness of ward committees. And also ward committees are a function which can receive queries, complaints from residents concerning municipal service delivery, communicate it to council, provide feedback that acts in the best interest of the community. So this is just alluding to what I've already said, that the ward committee can play a much more active role in our communities. But it's also very much important to highlight that ward committees, those are voluntary. It's a voluntarily structure. So people who serve or who have been elected to serve in ward committees are expected to volunteer on behalf of the community. So these are not paid positions by municipal council. Some wards, they will provide a little bit of a stipend to their ward committee members or leaders. But it doesn't necessarily mean that people will be employed. So it's not an employment mechanism for people to join. Okay, now to go on to the next part around ward budgets and local governance. So ward committees, I think let me just go back to the previous slide. So to this one, where it's supposed to share information in the ward regarding municipal affairs, such as the budget and the integrated development plan. Now, each and every municipality has a particular budget. Every municipality, whether local, district, metro, all municipalities have a particular budget, and all municipalities are mandated to have an integrated development plan. Now, the budget and the development plan needs to speak to each other. Once you understand the budget, okay, this is what the municipal council has decided to put its money or invest its money on, or the vision for this particular financial year is. And we look into the integrated development plan, which the integrated development plan needs to be adopted for the next 5 years, which will set the priorities of the municipality in whole. So this is where now our communities, us as community leaders and activists, also our ward committees, these 10 representatives, should actually be our monitoring and accountability system that we should be aware of, where we can hold our elected representatives, where we can hold our council by looking at their annual budget and looking at this integrated development plan for the next 5 years for the ward. You look at what are they prioritizing in the budget, and is it in line with the integrated development plan? And after that particular 5 years, we can then review the performance, or we should be rather reviewing the performance of our elected council, ward councillors, based on the integrated development plan and based on what council has been actually voting for in terms of their own budget. And that's where most of the time us as communities are very much at a distance between council, the decisions they make, what influences these decisions, and sometimes how money goes missing without being accountable for it. Because also municipal budgets are very, the Cape Town's budget for last year, it's a 293-page document. And it's full of numbers and percentages. So it's not very easy to, as a community member, to just go and read a budget and try to understand it on your own. I don't want to lie, even I myself, it's not easy to just. I know I'm just have a legal background, so it's not easy to just go and read a municipal budget and be like, oh, okay, 30%. You said you're going to invest 30% into this. But it becomes very important for us to be aware of those type of issues. And also it's important for municipalities to encourage us through education, through civic education, to understand where the budget is going and what priorities are given in a particular year in line with our integrated development plan. Okay. Now, in terms of budgeting, in section 153 of our constitution, a municipality must A, structure and manage its administration, budgeting and planning processes to give priority to basic needs of the community and to promote social and economic development of the community. Now, we know most of our municipalities around the country, they either get these unqualified audits, service delivery is poor, there is no structure. Some smaller municipalities where we've found is that it actually functions as a family entity where the municipal manager appoints his or her cousins. And then actually no one knows what's happening in that municipality and no service delivery are being given. So in terms of managing that budget and planning that process, they have to give priority to basic needs of the community. That's the number one element. Give priority to the basic needs of the community. And then secondary to that is to promote social and economic development of the community. So if basic needs is the number one function, as Amanda talked about, the number one function of local municipalities is to just give us the basic needs, which are water, sanitation, safe communities, clean communities, safe drinking water, and a healthy environment. And then after that, they have to promote these social and economic development in the community. This is where local municipalities will then are mandated to work with business, are mandated to work with provincial government, are mandated to work with national government. That cooperative governance also that Amanda talked about at the beginning of her presentation. Now, Section 16 of the Systems Act provides a municipality must develop a culture of municipal governance that complements formal representative government with a system of participatory governance and must, for this purpose, encourage and create conditions for local community to participate in the affairs of the municipality. Hey, yeah, no? So South Africa has the best legislation in the world. As you can see here, it says the System Act, municipalities must actually encourage us, not only tell us, but encourage us, right? And create conditions for us to participate. So it's not that we have to jump over the line and like we want to participate, but it should be in their core function. Yeah? The preparation, implementation, and review of its integrated development plan. I've talked about the IDP, the preparation of its budget, contribute to the building of capacity of local community to enable it to participate in the affairs of municipality. Ooh, councillors and staff to foster community participation. So all local governments are actually mandated to make sure that we as community members are able to participate, create an environment that allows us to participate, help us to understand, to review, and also to assist in the implementation of its IDP and to prepare a budget. So we were meant to know, okay, how much is going to go for roads, or road construction or road development or potholes management in our communities. We were supposed to know those numbers, and we're actually supposed to be encouraged to know. So there has to be systems in place. But as we know, none of this actually works. But maybe some ward councillors, they actually really do amazing work. We know of a few in Cape Town. And then now I'm going to talk about, okay, how to keep being aware of what actually happens in your local municipality. So I'll just briefly touch on the municipal budget cycle and then also on the municipal finance management cycle. So these two are separate, right? There's the budget cycle where they have to create the budget, yeah? And then there's actually now the implementation of that budget, right? Through the financial management cycle. So the first thing is review, preparation, and planning from August to November, right? So from August to November is when the internal administration of the municipality through the municipal manager who will get like a 5-year contract. And then underneath the municipal manager is the chief financial officer who also gets a contract of 5 years. And then everyone else has permanent contracts within the local municipality. Now, their job is to review what has been spent, to prepare per department, prepare and plan from August to November. Okay, this is what we think this is how much money we spent, this is how much we still need to spend. Also very much informed by the executive committee, the elected bodies and structures. Now, around March, April, there will be a draft budget. There has to be a draft budget that is sent out to communities for participation, and also communities can also submit budget submissions. Yeah. Where you're like, okay, here's the budget. We don't think this money, so much money should go to this priority. We think this is important for us. And we think actually this is in relation to your integrated development plan, your IDP. And then once this public participation element has been conducted by the municipality, remember in terms of the Systems Act, they have to encourage us to participate. So they have to actually come out to us to give us a draft budget. And then once we've submitted our submissions, council will have to consider our submission and vote on the budget. So everyone has to vote on the budget by May, which is our elected representatives. And then implementation will start between June, July. That's when this work starts. Now, in terms of that implementation, June, July, now this is the municipal finance management cycle, starts in June, prior to the budget and IDP implementation. Now, and then consult communities in September in the year prior to budget. This is similar to the budget cycle. And then the implementation will start in June and end May in the following year. So there is when they talk about a financial year, so the municipality's financial year, actually, in terms of implementing a budget, starts in June and will end in the following year in May. But while at the time it ends, there's always like planning in between for the following budget. And then after that, there's ongoing monthly and quarterly financial statements, and also quarterly service delivery reports. Oh, these were supposed to be done. At the end of each year, publish review annual report in January, right? Now, this is mostly for, now there's this concept called ward allocation budget. Now, the ward allocation budget, for each financial year, every sub-council is allocated a budget, and each ward is also has its ward allocation budget for its projects. And then after communicating with the community for their input, ward committees submit project plans to sub-council for approval. Now, ward allocation budgets are usually limited to metros, to the bigger municipalities. Now, this limitation is there because there's just more people, and also there's a very high concentration in terms of like the different wards between the different areas. In Cape Town, it will differ from metro to metro. In Cape Town, the current budget for a particular ward is 1 million rand per ward. Yeah. So each ward in Cape Town, from Ward 1 up until Ward 116, each one gets 1 million rand. And then in that 1 million rand, the ward councillor, with his or her ward committee and the community at large, needs to decide, what are we spending this 1 million rand on? What projects can we do, and what needs can we address in our particular ward that the 1 million rand can assist with within a period of 12 months? Is it done properly? No. So the ward councillor will only choose or select a few people, and the larger communities also are not very much aware of their own ward budget, not only the city budget, but the specific 1 million rand budget that they get allocated to by sub-council. And yeah, so those are one of the things that People's Legal Center is very passionate about and is working towards civic education for ward allocation budgets and ward committees throughout Cape Town. And then, yeah, that's pretty much close to the end of my presentation. And I'd like to thank everyone. And just the last parting words, as the Constitution affirms, South Africa is a democracy that upholds both representative and participatory democracy. Ward committees are your structured opportunity to make the people shall govern a live reality at local level. So thank you so much, everyone. And then we can share an additional resource on ward committees to Black Sash. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Yes, I think I wonder we actually have that resource you sent already. So Colliway, if you can just add it to I'll send you my presentation, and then once we can send the recording out, we'll send it with my presentation and with the things that you've already sent, Black Sash. So there are some questions online for you, Awande, and we want to end this timeously. So but let's just try and go through some of these questions. So it says, if you are saying budget and IDP must speak to each other, how? As our LM plan with the budget usually says they're waiting for our local municipality plan without their budget, which means that they're not sure about their allocation. So how is that going to be implemented? So that's just one question. I'm sorry, there's I'm trying to just navigate the chat here. So that was from Nomboniso about basically how are they planning while they wait for their allocation. I'm not sure if you're able to answer that.
Yeah.
And then you want to go for it, Salom?
Okay, let me, it's two questions, right? The first one is, I said that the budget and the IDP need to go hand in hand, right? And then the question is how, yeah? And
Yeah.
also the municipality says how can the municipality budget while they are waiting for their allocation from national government or provincial government, depending on how they get their money. So let me start with the first question. So how can the IDP and the budget work hand in hand? So the IDP is the actual plan, the plan for the next 5 years for the whole municipality, right? So the integrated development plan will speak on issues that the municipality plans to solve within its 5 year tenure, right? Let's say in this community, one of our biggest issues is the supply of water and roads, just as an example. So we have a lack of running water for people, and also we have a lack of road infrastructure. So any cars that come into our particular community, they usually get damaged because of poor roads. Children are getting sick because of the bad quality of water. So for the next 5 years, the municipalities says in our IDP, we're just going to focus on these two issues. This is just an example. Now, in terms of the budget, when the municipality does their budget, it has to speak to the integrated development plan. If the budget goes, oh, actually, we're going to invest 50% of this budget in building new municipal offices, it doesn't speak to the integrated development plan, which required roads and water for people. And then in the budget, you see that, oh, the municipality actually wants to buy 20 new cars for councillors or for the staff of the administration of the municipality. Then you ask yourself, if you're buying 20 new cars, but we don't have roads and you promised us roads, that's how the budget should be together with the IDP for the first question. And then for the second question is, how can the municipality do a budget without having being aware of the allocation that they're supposed to be getting. So I would like to maybe take this home to us as non-profit organizations. So non-profit organizations, we work on funding. So we apply for funding to funders. But before we even apply for funding to funders, we need to reflect on ourselves internally in terms of what do we need as an organization. And then what we need is an organization. We then plan around what we want to do, what we're thinking of achieving based on our feedback of our participants and our networks. And then from there, how much will this thing cost us? We create an estimate, right? So budgets are usually estimates of this is what we estimate we will be using money on, or this is what we estimate this thing will cost. So budgets are not definite, like, oh, it's solid now. We're going to get 50 million. We're going to get 50 billion rand. But it's an estimate. So based on that estimate, your municipality, it's a plan. A budget is a plan. And then the budget then becomes much more easier to have a budget. Once the allocation has been given, you can then justify to your community and say, unfortunately, our budget, we budgeted for this, but national government gave us this amount. COGTA gave us this amount for our local municipality. So we won't be able to implement these other plans, but we'll prioritize these ones. So I hope I answered the second question there in terms of how can people budget while still waiting for an allocation. So you can't wait for money to come. You need to be prepared when the money comes, Yeah.
Yeah. So another question someone asked was, what happens if a ward committee member and what happens if a ward councillor member vacates his position?
Okay, very good question. So there's these two are very separate, right? So
And then
what?
another general comment that
Yes.
people have said, and I think we must also wrap it up there, is about perhaps the importance of remunerating ward committee members. I feel differently. I think sometimes we have to volunteer for positions in our own community, but yeah, so that's just the question about vacating. Yeah.
Okay, vacating and also remuneration. Okay, so firstly, what happens when a ward councillor vacates his or her office? Because the ward councillor through elections in November will be elected. Let's go through a lived practicality now. So we're going to vote in November. After voting, a ward councillor of ward number 5 will serve. And then let's say through unfortunate natural causes, the ward councillor passes away, right? That means vacated the office, right? Through natural means, or they resign. What will then happen is once the ward councillor, which means there will be an open seat in council, and also there's an open seat within the ward. So what will need to happen is the IEC will come in and we'll have this thing what we call by-elections, right? So whenever there's a by-election, which means that particular ward will have to vote again for a different ward councillor. So just last month in May, I think the final by-elections in the country were being held. And I think there was a by-election in the Val in a particular ward. I think forgot the ward name, but it was so. And then what happens is if this particular councillor was from the Red Party, and then in the by-election, right, where the first councillor left in the by-election, a different party and a different councillor can come into power. So that's what by-election means. And then in terms of a ward committee member vacates his or her position, that will depend on the particular local council's rules on ward committees in terms of their election rules. So they can say, if someone vacates, the ward councillor can appoint an interim ward committee member. I'm just making an example. So it will depend from each and every community, but it's from each and every municipality. But for ward committees, in terms of vacancy, is not as structured as the ward councillor. And then the importance of remuneration of ward committee members. I think I have to stand with Amanda there, because if someone is really representing the community's interest, right? The moment we start remunerating them, it becomes a job, and a job becomes personal, and and then you get like these personal financial goals. So if there could be a particular threat, if you don't make a particular decision as a ward committee member, you have a threat of being fired now, or you have a threat of being pushed out of the ward committee. So to protect your income and your food and your plate, you always have that thing of, I have to be accountable to the ward councillor and not be accountable to the community. But if you are not paid, you're like, hey, don't care about you, and I'll tell you what I want to tell you now. You ward councillor, you need to do your job. So I think when you're not paid for something, you have much more less to lose than someone who's being paid. Sorry to put it that way, but like, yeah. Thanks, Amanda.
Great. And then one more thing. Okay, so I think that there are lots of messages in the chat, and I will try to see if there's any we can perhaps answer afterwards. Sorry, give me 1 second. 1 second quickly. What I wanted to, so what's going to happen is Awande's presentation. If you have registered for this, we have your email, because I see a lot of you are sending me your email in the chat. But once you've registered for this, then we have your email address, so don't worry. So we should sorry, give me a second. Give me 1 second here. I'm trying to see what I just did now. So we should have your email address, and it will be sent. And we'll be sending the resource. Can you guys see my screen? Sorry, my sharing. We'll be sending some resources for you. We've also got this resource that's on the screen that you will see. It's a little you can scan the QR code. I'm trying to learn to use QR codes, but it's also, let me just send it to you. Let me show it to you what it show you what it is. Hold on. Now I am panicking here. It's just a little explainer of basic services for you to also understand and to help you get people registered on the indigent policy. Again, this will also be a part of the teaching. So I want to encourage everyone to please apply on time. Okay, now I am panicking here with sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. I'm sure my colleagues are laughing at me. Because I always, okay, hold on. Sorry, it's because I'm using 2 screens. So we'll send you this reclaiming democracy towards responsive ward committees, which will come through, as well as this flyer explaining basic services and how people can apply for the free basic electricity. That's also going to happen. And then, yeah, so that will come through to all of you guys through your emails. And one more thing is that please apply on time. Again, our next webinar will be with Krishna from Northwest University, and it will be on mediation. And if you apply for Krishna's course, yeah, it's also, there will be this, that you need, there are different needs, like you need to have a matric certificate for that, for Krishna's course. There's no requirements for that for this, for the other stream, but for Krishna's one. So please read your application very carefully. Yeah, I think that's all for today. So thank you, Awande, for being here. Thank you to all of you guys for being here and for registering. There were some people who didn't get airtime, even though they requested airtime, and that was because there was a mistake with the network. There was either a mistake with the number that you provided or the network you provided. So please make sure that if you are Vodacom, you say you're Vodacom, you don't say you're Telkom, so that we can, and also, so that we can support you with airtime for the next webinar. Koliwe, can you just remind me, the next webinar is happening on the 28th, right? So when Koliwe sends out these resources, we could also possibly send out the invitation to the next webinar. Okay, I think that's everything. I just want to be mindful of time. Thank you for all the thank yous. But yeah, hopefully see you guys soon, and see you at the end of the month for the next webinar. Great. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.